Saika Academy is a prestigious school for gifted students, nurturing talents in performing arts, athletics, and advanced academics. UASA recently transferred here, yet he's already become his mentor's punching bag. His mentor constantly yells at him in frustration, not because of what Yu has done, but because of who he is. The son of the legendary Subaru Ayase, a world-renowned actress and top student. Unlike his mother, Yu struggles. He's weak in martial arts and failed his advanced classes. Still, many students remain hopeful, believing that true prodigies often hide their talents. Subaru Ayase is an A-class graduate of Saika Academy, celebrated worldwide as a brilliant thespian with unmatched looks and daring performance stunts. Her talents span across many fields, and she graduated at the top of her class. With such a legacy, Yu's every move is under scrutiny, especially when he fails to live up to expectations. Despite Yu admitting that he has never been in combat in his entire life, his mentor insists on testing him. He claims that the three royals are curious about what kind of person Yu really is. Fueled by pressure and frustration, Yu charges forward and throws a punch with all his might, but when it lands, it feels like nothing more than a weak tap. His mentor finally loses his temper and slams Yu to the ground. Soon, murmurs echo throughout the stadium. Subaru Ayase's son is a complete failure. People often expect the children of prodigies to inherit their brilliance. Yu has lived with these disappointments since he turned 17. Still on the floor, he shoots a sharp remark at his mentor. The more mediocre you are, the more you obsess over talent. His mentor feels like he's speaking to Subaru herself. If nothing else, you truly inherited her face. Still, his mentor keeps scolding him for being mediocre, but Yu already knows that. He's seen his mother's brilliance firsthand. Without another word, he walks away. Everyone assumes he's simply used to losing, but they can't let that happen. The three royals place their hopes on him. His mentor, furious, decides to beat the talent out of him. But just as he moves to strike, a sudden kick hits him from behind. Standing there is Nico, followed by her two sisters, Kazuki, a best-selling theater actress, and Miwa, a sports genius with unmatched achievements. Nico herself is the top martial artist in school. Together, they are the three royals' highest-ranked students of each program. Yu, still lying on the ground, stares up in disbelief as the trio stands before him. His eyes widen in shock. Kazuki steps forward to greet Yu, and when asked about his advanced tests, it's confirmed. He's a mediocre hack with zero talent. It's a major letdown, especially since all three of them had expected him to join their respective programs. Of course, Yu already knows his own limits. In fact, he's already transferred to the general education program, a division they forgot even existed. With that, Yu turns to leave, but Nico stops him, telling him to clean up first. Apparently, it's an unwritten rule. The loser cleans the dojo, so he has to keep going. The three royals toss a few parting insults his way as they leave, and while Yu wants to talk back, there's nothing he can do. He picks up the bucket of water and begins cleaning. The next day, the martial arts program heads to the stadium for their usual practice, only to find the entire area sparkling clean. Yu, on the other hand, walks home lost in thought about his past. When he was younger, he used to dream of being praised like his mother. He would practice movie lines in front of the TV, but every time he saw her perform, he knew he couldn't match her brilliance. He kept searching for his strength, jumping from one field to another, but reality hit hard. He was just mediocre. That realization made him slowly distance himself from his mother, even though she was the only family he had. Then she fell ill. During her hospital stay, she often rewatched a movie she once co-starred in, a series about family life where she played the mother. It wasn't one of her more glamorous roles, but Yu liked it. She did too. While standing beside her hospital bed, Yu mentioned that his favorite part of the show was how every episode ended with a family dinner. Everyone gathered around talking and laughing about random things. For the first time in many years, they had a real heart-to-heart talk. And in that moment, Yu realized that his mother only ever wanted a normal, happy family. Her final wish was just that, for Yu to have a happy family. Yu closes the notebook and walks off with his luggage in hand. His mother's wish was for him to have a happy family. Though he's not entirely sure how to make that happen, he's determined to try. He stops in front of a large house with the name Mikadono displayed at the gate. The place is massive. Still, Mikadono told him he could come in. So Yu steps inside, and to his shock, it's a full-blown mansion. Awestruck by the size and grandeur of the home, Yu starts to wonder more about who this Mikadono really is. He's about to unpack his luggage when, without warning, a foot lands squarely on his face. He crashes to the ground. Standing before him, fresh from the bath and wearing nothing but a towel, is none other than Nico. Realizing that Nico lives here and most likely mistook him for a criminal, Yu tries to explain, but Nico is already agitated. She's about to launch another attack when she suddenly slips and falls, giving Yu the chance to tease her a little. He even throws a towel over her head in an attempt to dry her off, but after a few seconds, Nico pulls away from his grip, clearly annoyed. Just then, the two other sisters arrive. Kazuki squints at Yu, saying he looks familiar, while Miwa immediately recognizes him and demands to know what he's doing in their house. Before you can explain, his phone suddenly rings from the table. All three girls freeze when Yu answers and casually mentions their father's name, Mr. Mikadono. He's checking in to see if Yu arrived safely. As it turns out, Yu's mother was an old friend and benefactor of Mr. Mikadono, so he decides to look after Yu in her absence, hoping for her talent to live on. But what's shocking is the three girls are Mikadono's daughters, though he conveniently forgot to mention that. Mr. Mikadono says he expects Yu to get along with his daughters, and Yu can only drop his phone in disbelief. He remembers his mother's dying wish for him to have a happy family. And now this is how a mediocre kid like himself ends up becoming family with three gifted sisters. The girls, upon learning they'll be living with Yu, can only scream in disbelief. Yu, on the other hand, feels like he's stepped into a bizarre dream. Nico, clearly irritated, reluctantly accepts the situation, saying it's their father's decision anyway. Kazuki is in disbelief that their father would take in someone she considers a failure. Meanwhile, Miwa flat out refuses to take care of a dumb mooch. It's obvious none of them are happy with Yu's presence. Still, Yu decides not to back down. He may be average, but he's determined to stay strong and live up to the happy family his mother once imagined. Yu formally introduces himself to the sisters, though none of them seem to care. As he moves to take care of his luggage, he accidentally steps on what appears to be a woman's undergarment. Kazuki snatches it away in a flash, clearly embarrassed. That's when Yu realizes the entire mansion is a complete pigsty. Taking a peek into the kitchen, he finds it in even worse condition. Kazuki was supposedly in charge of the dishes, but never got around to doing them. Broken glass litters the sink, and Yu carefully picks up the pieces one by one. It seems Kazuki had tried to wash them, just not very successfully. Then Yu turns to the mountain of unwashed laundry, which was apparently Miwa's responsibility. She casually admits she forgot how to do it, despite being capable of memorizing far more complicated things. To cope, she had scribbled washing instructions on her own hands. Nico, who's in charge of household chores, mocks Yu's aptitude test results, accusing him of exposing their failures. But Yu doesn't seem to care at all. After the sisters finish throwing insults, none of which he even listens to, the entire mansion is already sparkling clean. That's when Nico finally connects the dots. He's also the one who cleaned the dojo. Yu tries to win them over again, flashing a smile and saying he can clean like this anytime. He's got the looks, that's for sure, if only he weren't such a complete failure in everything else. The next morning, he wakes up to his alarm, expecting a peaceful day since there's no school. But that hope quickly fades when loud pounding echoes through the house. At just 7 in the morning, Miko is already training in her private dojo. In another room, Miwa is caught up in an intense game, furiously playing while debating with an opponent. Meanwhile, Kazuki stands in the kitchen, casually mixing a murky green beverage as part of her routine. Yu realizes he's nothing like the three sisters. Even without school, they all have plans for the day, leaving him alone in the house. He hopes they could share breakfast, but Kazuki seems to be in a rush. When he turns to Miwa, he finds her sitting comfortably with a mountain of snacks, clearly counting that as her morning meal. He tries to caution her about eating sweets before breakfast, but the glint in her eyes suggests he shouldn't bother. As he begins to prepare breakfast for himself, his thoughts drift back to life with his mother. Whenever he made breakfast, she rarely ate with him, always busy. She was constantly focused on herself. Yu knows this behavior well. Prodigies often live in their own worlds. If he couldn't even manage to connect with his own mother, how could he ever hope to live peacefully with three gifted sisters? While having his breakfast, Yu notices Miko eyeing his food. She's surprised to learn that he cooked everything from ingredients that were close to spoiling. When Yu offers her a plate, she's tempted to accept but quickly remembers her strict diet. His cooking may be impressive, but the meal is far too unbalanced for someone focused on martial arts training. As the three sisters rush to prepare for the day, Yu is left alone at the table. He recalls how his mother used to diet strictly for certain acting roles. Now it makes more sense. Kazuki does it to maintain her top star status, Miwa snacks to keep her brain sharp, and Nico follows a routine for physical performance. Prodigies often become so focused on themselves that they overlook the people around them. Yu remembers how even his mother scared him sometimes. He distanced himself, unable to understand her world. As the three girls rush out the door, they argue along the way, each blaming the other for running late. Just before they can completely leave, Yu stops them. He announces that they forgot something, prompting all three to rummage through their bags in a panic, only to realize they didn't forget anything at all. Annoyed, they scold him for startling them. That's when Yu calmly says what they forgot. Have a nice day. Instead of cheering them up, the words only creep them out. Still, they continue on their way, brushing it off. His message clearly didn't land the way he hoped, but Yu remains determined to keep trying. Nico mutters to herself that it was a stupid thing to say, but when she catches her reflection, her cheeks are flushed. Even Kazuki and Miwa find themselves thinking about it, though none of them will admit it. Deep down, they kind of liked it. Back at the mansion, Yu is washing the dishes when he receives a call from Mr. Mikadono. He's just checking in and informing Yu that he won't be home often due to work. That means Yu will be spending most of his time alone with the three sisters. Mr. Mikadono has a favor to ask as well. He explains that, as prodigies, his daughters will eventually face challenges of their own. He wants you to be there for them through those obstacles. If you succeeds, he believes the sisters will eventually open up to him. Still, it's a difficult request. You can't help but wonder how someone as average as him could possibly help girls so gifted. You still can't believe why such gifted girls would ever need his help, but Mr. Mikadono explains that Kazuki is facing a difficult audition. Nico is aiming for another National Martial Arts Championship, and Miwa has an upcoming Shaja title match. He wants you to support them through these challenges. With that, the call ends. While hanging the laundry, you can't shake the thought from his mind. He's just a mediocre guy, neither athletic nor academically gifted, so he doubts whether he can actually be of any help. Still, he knows failure is always a possibility, and he, of all people, understands how painful that is. As the son of a prodigy with no talent of his own, you learn early how hard it is to live with people's disappointment. If that pain is already too much for someone like him, he can't imagine how devastating it would be for someone seen as exceptional. Determined to make it work somehow, Yu grabs his bicycle and rides off to the market. If he wants to get to know them better, he figures he should start by sharing a meal with them. When Nico comes home, she's instantly startled by Yu's presence. She almost forgot he lives with them now. Yu is in the middle of cooking something and even invites Nico to give it a taste. Suspecting he's trying to win her over with food, Nico quickly refuses and tells him she already bought dinner for herself. She proceeds to take a shower and dry her hair, then heads out again, only to find Yu still in the kitchen, now in full chef mode. Watching him so focused on cooking makes Nico realize just how serious he is. He's surrounded by a mountain of cookbooks, trying to get everything right. Seeing this, Nico starts to think he's trying even harder now because she turned him down earlier. At the same time, Miwa arrives home and Yu informs her about the family dinner he's preparing. Nico still finds the whole idea ridiculous, thinking Yu is just desperate for attention. But the scene unexpectedly stirs up an old memory. Years ago, even when top chefs prepared meals, the three sisters would refuse the food that any normal kid would have been thrilled to eat. Nico, in particular, always strictly controlled what went into her body, pre-packed meals with just the right balance of nutrients to maintain her physique for training. That night, she eats alone in her room. But as she takes a bite of her meal, she can't seem to shake the thought of Yu's cooking. Miko decides to take a peek from her room. Seeing that Yu is no longer in sight, she quietly heads downstairs. But the moment her eyes land on the meal prepared on the table, she freezes in surprise. It's a perfectly balanced meal, specifically tailored for an athlete's diet. Just then, Yu appears behind her and begins listing all the nutrients included in the meal. He explains that he designed it to complement her training routine, and that's when Nico finally gives in and accepts her defeat. Yu even consulted a dietitian to customize the ingredients based on her needs. Realizing he made all of this just for her, Nico tries to hide her amazement but eventually takes his seat at the dining table to at least give his cooking a try. The moment she takes a bite and doesn't insult it, Yu lights up like a cheerful kid who just got his pet kitten to eat. Moments later, Miwa peeks from the staircase, eyeing her sister's plate. Unable to hide her curiosity and mild envy, she quietly makes her way downstairs. Though she tries to stay unnoticed, Yu spots her and immediately presents another plate, this one tailored precisely for her brain function. He even recites the nutrient content with the same enthusiasm. Nico is taken aback to realize that Yu prepared each of them a specialized meal. Miwa tries to brush him off with her usual attitude, but Yu doesn't budge. He stands his ground, hoping to see both sisters enjoy the food he worked so hard to prepare. Now that the two sisters are finally seated at the same table, they begin teasing each other like normal siblings, which brings a smile to Yu's face. But that moment is quickly cut short when Kazuki arrives. Yu eagerly presents the meal he specially prepared for her, carefully packed with nutrients to help maintain her glow and radiance as a star. However, Kazuki remains unmoved. Without even glancing at the dish, she turns away and heads straight to her room. Though part of her finds it heartwarming to see her sisters sharing a table like a real family, she refuses to join them. For her, none of it is meant for her. Not the table, and certainly not the food made by a nobody like Yu. Yu freezes in place, his hopes instantly crushed. Even Nico and Miwa are visibly annoyed by their sister's behavior. In response, Nico volunteers to eat Kazuki's meal instead, but Yu quickly stops her, warning that she might exceed her carbohydrate intake. If she gives in to rage eating, she'll end up chubby for sure. Miko is clearly irritated by the comment, but Yu assures them that from now on they can rest easy. He'll be the one preparing all their meals and managing everything that goes into their bodies. It's been 3 days since Yu was taken in by Mr. Mikadono, that he's made no progress with Kazuki. Still, he recalls Mr. Mikadono's request to take care of his daughters. While sitting in class, his mind drifts back to her, and he begins to wonder how he might understand her better. Suddenly, a thought strikes him. He stands up from his seat without hesitation, determined to finally make a move. He tries to visit Kazuki, and in the hallway, he spots a group of students crowding around her, admiring her beauty. Without thinking, he calls out to her and whispers, "Surround them quickly." Kazuki immediately warns him not to come any closer, but Yu puts on a pitiful act, reminding her how hard he tried to win her over through his cooking. Worried that others might get the wrong idea, Kazuki scolds him loudly, but that only draws more attention. The crowd begins to suspect that the two of them are in a relationship. Seeing the commotion grow, Yu panics and dashes away before things get worse. His second option is to seek help from Miko. He visits her at the dojo, where she's busy going through the training schedule with the martial arts team. The moment he calls out to her, Miko's irritated expression says it all. Two of her teammates step in, ready to confront him, thinking he might be causing trouble. Miko's angry glare only adds fuel to the fire. Realizing the danger he's in, Yu wastes no time. He bolts out of the dojo as fast as he can. Now he is down to his last card, Miwa. Inside the classroom, Miwa is casually playing on her phone while other students chat about their homework. To everyone's surprise, Miwa effortlessly blurts out the correct answer, making the others feel foolish after just discussing how difficult it was. On his way to Miwa's classroom, Yu overhears some students whispering about how Miwa is way out of their league. When he finally steps inside, he's surprised to find the cheerful, jolly Miwa sitting completely alone without any friends around her. Without hesitation, Yu asks her to have lunch with him, but Miwa refuses and casually walks away. Still, Yu refuses to give up. He chases after her, following closely no matter where she tries to run. His persistence turns into a full-blown chase around the school. Interestingly, they both run at the same pace, which only proves that Miwa is definitely not an athlete. After some time of running, they both collapse in exhaustion. Miwa admits that athletics isn't her strong suit, but she's still better than Yu. Yu brings up how quiet she is in class, to which Miwa replies that she simply can't follow the senseless conversations high schoolers have. She's royalty, which means she is completely different from them. When Yu says he can relate, Miwa raises an eyebrow. He jokes that he's royalty too, of the short, weak, and stupid kind. Plus, the looks he inherited from his mother are basically false advertising, which Miwa, surprisingly, agrees with. Yu tries to comfort her by saying their uniqueness makes them special, but his words falter and he forgets what he was going to say next, causing Miwa to scowl in annoyance. A few moments later, the two now have sandwiches in hand. Yu opens up about his ongoing struggle with Kazuki, which triggers a memory for Miwa. She recalls that when Kazuki was 3, she wanted their mother to cook just for her. She looked so happy back then. Maybe that's a clue. That conversation gives Yu a possible lead. Kazuki might be longing for a dish her mother used to make just for her. But the question is, what could that dish be? As Kazuki walks through the door, Yu eagerly shows her what he's about to cook, but to his shock, Kazuki suddenly collapses to the floor. When her two sisters arrive and check on her, Kazuki brushes them off, claiming she's just fatigued. However, her forehead is burning hot. Concerned, Yu heads into her room with a bowl of porridge specially made for her fever, but Kazuki shuts everyone out, insisting they're all overreacting. While making their way downstairs, the sisters talk about how Kazuki easily gets sick, and that her rehearsals for the lead role are especially brutal. Over the next few days, Yu continues sending meals to Kazuki's room, but each one returns untouched, accompanied by a note that simply says, "Take that away." Frustrated and worried, Yu finally reaches his limit, but Kazuki immediately drives him out. However, just as Kazuki tries to stand up, she collapses again, this time falling right onto Yu. Still, Yu doesn't give up. He volunteers to bring her supplements, concerned that she might miss too many rehearsals if her condition worsens. Suddenly, an idea strikes him. He'll act as her scene partner so she can continue rehearsing without leaving her room. After all, he's the son of the legendary Subaru Ayase. He even debuted at the age of 2, while Kazuki didn't make her debut until she was 6. Maybe he's not as hopeless as he seems. Picking up the script, Yu attempts to portray the princess who is betrothed to Kazuki's character. But the moment he delivers his lines, his performance falls flat. Without hesitation, Kazuki drives him out of the room. As it turns out, the only reason Yu debuted at age 2 was because his mother pulled some strings. He failed every audition that followed. To Kazuki, Yu has no real understanding of effort given that everything he had was handed down by his parents' influence. That night, Yu returns to Kazuki's room, having read the entire script, but his performance shows no improvement. The next morning, he tries again after rereading it 10 times, that even a school play sounds better. The day after that, he continues, but the results remain the same. Lying in bed, Kazuki reflects on how an amateur like Yu could never understand what it means to be a professional. She's always been admired, always cast in lead roles with immense pressure resting on her shoulders. Failure has never been an option. Determined to get better, Kazuki decides to step out of her room only to find Yu in front of the TV. He's watching the movie adaptation of the role she's playing. She realizes that even after school and housework, Yu spends his nights studying the role just to help her rehearse. The next morning, Yu's performance is still as wooden as ever, but Kazuki decides not to push him away. He did put effort into it after all. Then, unexpectedly, after Kazuki delivers her line, Yu responds with such emotion that it actually turns out well. It moves him to tears. After failing so many times, he finally did something right. Kazuki thinks it's ridiculous to cry over one good line, so she scolds him back to his senses. Still, deep down, she quietly hopes she can return to acting soon. Then Kazuki suddenly speaks. She's finally ready to eat Yu's cooking, but only under one condition. She hesitates at first, pulling a blanket over her face out of embarrassment before quietly reciting a list of things she refuses to eat. After all this time, Kazuki simply does not want them to know she is such a fussy eater. That morning, Miko and Miwa stare in disbelief. Kazuki is eating with them, and not just that, she's eating real food. Yu passes by, casually praising Kazuki for finishing her soup, and she shrugs it off, saying it's fine as long as there are no carrots. Unbeknownst to her, Yu had secretly grated some in. While eating his own meal, Yu feels relieved. It took time and effort to bring them all to the table, and they sure are a handful. However, by nightfall, his earlier joy fades. One by one, the sisters send word they won't be home for dinner. Yu tries to act unaffected, but the disappointment creeps into his voice, just when he thought they were finally becoming a family again. On the bright side, having a prodigy for a mother made him used to being left behind. She often wouldn't come home for months, buried in her work. But that same devotion is what eventually pulled him apart. Now he can't help but compare the Mikadono sisters to her. They're all prodigies, while he feels like a nobody in their shadow. Still, he can't ignore the fact that Mr. Mikadono personally asked him to look after his daughters. It's a responsibility that weighs heavily on him, even if he doesn't know how to fulfill it. In the silence, his thoughts drift back to his mom and her final wish, for him to have a happy family. The problem is, he doesn't know what a happy family looks like. Searching for clarity, he thinks of his favorite movie, the one where his mom played the loving mother. Watching it always struck a chord. There wasn't any heavy drama, just small smiles, laughs, and simple conversations. That's the kind of family he wants to create. Soon, his table is stacked with DVDs of the movie series. One by one, he watches them all until he reaches the part where his mom, as the lead actress, wears a wedding dress and marries the protagonist. She wanted him to have a happy family of his own, but he couldn't help but feel the weight of reality. Movies are far different than real life. So engrossed in the show, Yu loses track of time. The Mikadono sisters eventually return, tired from their respective errands. As they walk into the living room, they're stunned to find Yu teary-eyed watching TV. Miwa curiously comes closer to see what moved him so much and is shocked to realize he binge-watched the entire series. Kazuki silently recognizes the actress on screen, Sumaru. With this, she quickly assumes that Yu must miss his mother deeply. Taking a quiet breath, Kazuki tells him that he doesn't have to keep cooking or doing chores just to be accepted. Miwa chimes in, suggesting he take things easy. And Nico remarks that he's just a freeloader anyway. Yu seems taken aback by Nico's blunt comment. He stands up, firmly explaining that he doesn't see himself as a freeloader. Despite the differences he had with his mother, he realized they were more alike than he thought. So this time, he wants to do things right. He wants to connect with them and have a happy family genuinely. But the sisters don't quite understand. Nico scoffs, saying families are overrated, especially for people like them. Besides, how could someone like you possibly be considered family to them? Just then, the wedding scene plays on screen. The male lead's heartfelt vow to Subaru about wanting to build a family strikes a chord, but not in the way Yu expects. The sisters all freeze, having the same realization. They misunderstand entirely, thinking Yu wants to marry all of them and make them his bride. Clueless about the malicious thoughts the sisters are having, Yu presses further, asking Nico about her birthday. The sisters look at him with confusion, and he explains that since they're in the same grade, he wants to know who's older so he can figure out who the older sibling should be. As Yu continues to speak, all three sisters turn red with frustration. Without letting him finish, they snap that he's nothing but a freeloader and storm off in unison. Later that evening, while soaking in the bath, Nico finds herself thinking about Yu. It bothers her how indifferent he seems despite living with 3 girls. Just then, a scream echoes from the kitchen, jolting her. Yu forgot to buy bread for their sandwiches and is panicking over it. But when Yu turns around and notices her state, his concern shifts. He gently points out she's only wearing a towel and might catch a cold. Nico, thoroughly embarrassed, bolts out of the kitchen and nearly crashes into Miwa, who instantly notices how red her face is. Flustered, Nico insists it's just the heat from the bath, but Miwa isn't convinced. Nico had only been in there for 5 minutes. Miwa starts piecing things together. Nico never reacted like this when you accidentally saw her nude before, so what's different now? She squints at her suspiciously, and Nico hastily denies whatever Miwa was about to accuse her of. Just then, Yu walks in carrying a pile of freshly folded laundry and hands it to Miwa. As she reaches out, her hand brushes against his and her face immediately flushes pink. She jerks her hand back dramatically, leading Nico to suspect that she also has a little crush on Yu. When Miko says the word also without thinking, Miwa freezes. The implication is clear Miko must have a crush on him too. Miko panics and the two start bickering, throwing denials at each other while Yu, completely unaware, calmly picks up the scattered clothes Miwa dropped and begins folding them again. Amid the squabbling, Kazuki steps in and scolds her sisters. Yu also turns to her and politely asks if she could place a pot on the top shelf, something he can't quite reach. Since Kazuki is in a surprisingly good mood, she obliges, but when Yu thanks her with a bright, sincere smile, her cheeks flush red. She quickly turns away, hoping he doesn't notice, But Miwa and Nico catch it immediately, so they begin teasing her too. Yu, still oblivious to what's going on, asks them not to fight, thinking it's just more of their usual bickering. The girls eventually disperse, leaving Yu alone in the room. However, as he looks around, he notices the scattered mess and starts tidying up. As he does, he reflects on everything. Movies are different from reality. Still, that time they all ate together, it felt genuine. He hopes they'll share more of those moments again. While cleaning the table, Yu picks up an old photo. It's the three sisters as kids, smiling brightly, arms around each other. They look so happy then, completely different from how distant they are now. Curious, he asks each of them who left the photo out, but none admit to it. He doesn't buy their denial. He's certain one of them left it there. Someone must still treasure that memory, and Yu decides he wants to help. The next day, the sisters inform him that each of them will be away for the weekend due to different obligations tied to their paths. During class, Yu struggles to focus, feeling uneasy at the idea of them growing more distant. So he begins quietly researching their destinations. As he scrolls through each of their agendas on his phone, he realizes something and an idea hits him. The night before their trips, Yu goes out of his way to prepare everything, making drinks for the sisters and even booking their hotels in advance to ease their load. He hands each of them a hotel ticket, doing his best to give them comfort. Miwa, however, scoffs that hotel food is usually bad. Yu teases that she'll miss his cooking, but she denies it with a frown. Still, he promises to cook them a delicious dinner once they return. The next day, Miwa heads into her first shogi match. Calm and precise, she reads her opponent's strategy and wins with sharp moves. As she's on her way to leave, her mentor approaches her. Tomorrow's opponent will be different, someone with the skill of a 4th-degree master, and the competition can get tough even for a genius like her. As Miwa heads back to the hotel, her mentor's warning echoes in her mind. A strong opponent awaits, who knows she'll need to squeeze in extra practice tonight. But as she walks beneath the cherry blossoms, the night festival catches her eye. The sight slows her pace, stirring memories from years ago. At the hotel reception, just as she's about to check in, Miwa notices Kazuki standing ahead and their eyes meet in surprise. Kazuki explains that her performance theater is nearby, just as Miwa realizes her shogi match is in the same area. Moments later, Nico arrives, just as puzzled to find them both there. Turns out, her competition will also take place near the place. Before they can make sense of the coincidence, Yu appears, smiling with his backpack slung over his shoulder. He admits it was him. Knowing the sisters hadn't talked about their plans, he secretly arranged for them to stay near each other. Yu just wanted to bring them a little closer again. The three find the idea ridiculous, but Yu insists it's a chance for family bonding, a moment for them to spend time together as sisters. Still confused about his presence, they ask why he's even there. Yu grins and tells them he's their festival conductor. Since tonight is the Cherry Blossom Night Festival and they're already nearby, he suggests they at least drop by. Though deep inside, he has a hidden motive. The same festival appears in the old photo they left behind, and he figured whoever treasured it might secretly wish to relive that moment. To Yu's surprise, all three sisters react the same way, thinking his idea is absurd, especially since they're there to compete. Anticipating their resistance, Yu explains that the festival's shrine is famous for bringing luck to competitors. Nico scoffs, saying only losers rely on prayers, not geniuses like them. In response, Yu pulls out a booklet filled with names of renowned prodigies who once visited the shrine for guidance. The sisters are visibly surprised. Yu adds that faith matters just as much as skill, and besides, he has a whole booklet entirely dedicated to the festival. He also shows them photos of the different foods sold at the stalls, which immediately grabs Nico and Miwa's attention. Kazuki is the first to respond, agreeing to go. She sees it as a perfect opportunity to gain engagement on her social media. However, she warns her sisters to dress appropriately if they plan to tag along. Unfazed, Yu reveals that he's already researched the best places to rent festival outfits. They head to a kimono store, and the moment the vendors lay eyes on the sisters, their faces light up with admiration. Yu requests kimonos for the three, and the staff eagerly volunteer to assist, clearly excited to dress them. Kazuki is the first to try one on, an elegant, monotone kimono that highlights her natural poise. Miwa follows in a green kimono with a kitten pattern radiating her vibe. You can't help but take photos, smiling with admiration. When they look toward Nico, however, she's still sitting quietly in a corner. She mutters that she doesn't like wearing kimonos, but Yu gently encourages her, reminding her there are many styles to explore. A vendor then offers her a denim kimono, saying it suits someone strong and handsome like her. The moment catches Miko off guard. It brings her back to childhood, when she used to love frilly dresses, but people constantly labeled her a tomboy. That judgment has stayed with her until now. Yu hands Nico a pink kimono adorned with delicate cherry blossom patterns. Even her sisters are skeptical, whispering that such a soft, feminine style doesn't suit her. But Yu is confident it will look perfect on her. So now she has two choices, and it is up to Nico to decide for herself. Minutes pass, and Nico is still inside the dressing room while her sisters begin to grow impatient, wondering why she's taking so long. Then, at last, the doors slide open. She steps out wearing the pink kimono, For a moment, no one speaks. Her hair is styled gently to match the outfit, and the sight of her leaves everyone stunned. Nico mumbles that she probably looks weird, avoiding their gaze. But the way they're all staring, utterly in awe. The sisters, along with Yu, wander through the lively festival that night. However, Yu is caught off guard by just how popular Kazuki is. She quickly becomes the center of attention, surrounded by a crowd of starstruck admirers. Yu had hoped they could enjoy the festival together like a happy family, but it seems Kazuki has shifted into work mode, engaging with fans and posing for pictures. Watching her handle everything so gracefully, Yu hesitates to interfere. Fortunately, there's no need to. Even while chatting with fans, Kazuki keeps an eye on her sisters and soon notices Miwa and Miko happily sampling festival treats. Meanwhile, while other people are admiring Kazuki, there is this one girl who did not go with the crowd. According to her, Kazuki may be hot, but she is still a girl after all. Refusing to join the hype, she decides to walk away from the scene. Unfortunately, just as she turns around, the strap of her slipper snaps, causing her to lose balance and stumble forward. In that exact moment, Kazuki steps in and catches her right before she hits the ground. When the girl opens her eyes, she finds herself in Kazuki's arms. The crowd erupts in excitement, cheering over the unexpected heroic act. Without paying much attention to the noise around them, Kazuki carries the girl to a safer space. Yu, who has been watching from a distance, immediately trails after them, trying not to lose Kazuki amidst the sea of people. Once Kazuki ensures the girl is safe, she attempts to return to the main event, only to be pulled aside by Yu, who's hiding behind some nearby bushes. Now hidden, Kazuki is ready to scold Yu for the sudden move, but he quickly hands her a bag filled with food. Though Kazuki initially tries to refuse his offer, Yu pulls out one more thing, a small bandage. He had noticed earlier how she walked more gingerly than usual, so he assumes something is wrong with her sandal straps. Without hesitation, he urges her to put a bandage on her foot. Kazuki feels slightly creeped out, wondering if Yu has been watching her all this time. However, when he insists she show him her foot, he discovers just how bad the wound is, that she was still carrying someone in that state. Yu wonders why she never mentioned it, but Kazuki explains that as someone expected to play the role of everyone's prince, asking for help would only disappoint people's expectations. Yu, however, insists it shouldn't matter. Everyone deserves to be themselves. With that, he suggests taking care of her injury, and Kazuki finally complies. As Yu gently applies the bandage to the tender area, Kazuki feels a warm blush rising to her cheeks. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Miwa and Nico are at a festival stall. Miko is growing increasingly frustrated trying to catch a salmon with a paper scoop but fails every time, while Miwa bursts into laughter, her amusement only making Miko's irritation worse. Just in time, Yu and Kazuki arrive to join them, though Kazuki now wears a mask to avoid recognition. With that, the four decide to pair up Kazuki and Yu against Miko and Miwa in the goldfish scooping game. While playing, Miwa jokes that Kazuki should always wear a mask since it looks happier than her usual frown. After a while of playing, Miko breaks her scoop in frustration while Miwa effortlessly catches fish after fish. Kazuki accuses her of cheating, but Miwa smugly claims they simply lack skill. Yu, meanwhile, frowns at how seriously they're taking the game. Eventually, Yu quietly excuses himself from the group, intentionally leaving the girls to spend time together while he makes his way to another location. Yu bolts through the festival grounds with unwavering determination, heading straight toward a special event, the Lotus Hopping Competition. This annual challenge requires participants to cross a pond by hopping across lotus-shaped platforms and reach the Torii Gate at the end. The prize will be a photo with the shrine's golden guardian, which is said to bring great luck, especially for those who have upcoming competitions. Yu clutches a worn photo of the three sisters holding the same shrine from their childhood. His goal is to have them recreate that memory so they can relive their happiest moments together. Winning this game feels like the key to bringing back that bond. However, the challenge is far from simple. Contestants fall one after another, splashing into the water one by one. It turns out that some of the lotus pads will sink without warning, so they need to find the sturdy ones themselves in order to succeed. Spectators murmur that the game is near to impossible. Even the hosts admit no one was able to finish the game for a decade now. Yet one of the hosts recalls a memory from 10 years ago when three young sisters succeeded. The next challenger steps forward, Yu, and with a deep breath, he leaps. But in an instant, he plunges straight into the water, instantly losing his first try. Undeterred, Yu climbs back out, and after the hosts announce that challengers can retry, he volunteers to go again, but his second attempt fares no better. He barely makes it past the first few platforms before sinking. One by one, the other challengers bow out, surrendering their chances, but Yu refuses to quit. He begs the hosts for another turn, then another, until at last he is the only competitor left. The skies darken, rain begins to fall, and the hosts plead for him to give up, but Yu stands firm. Staring at the lotus pads, Yu imagines how the three sisters might have worked together, using each other's strengths to succeed. Then he makes a final run, and with one last desperate leap, he lands on solid ground before the Torii Gate. Finally, the host prepares to snap Yu's photo with the shrine, but he declines and sprints back toward the sisters' location. Yet the rain worsens and announcements echo that the festival will close early. Soaked and breathless, Yu stops in the middle of the road, scanning the empty place. His heart sinks as realization strikes. Maybe they've already gone home. He recalls their earlier words about not wanting to attend, and doubt floods his mind. Perhaps he's been too pushy, risking driving them further apart instead of bringing them closer. Yu lies down and closes his eyes in defeat, but when he opens them again, he's surprised to see the three holding their umbrellas. The three wonders why he hasn't come back immediately. They thought he left them behind, but he's wrong. Now they want him to lead them back to the hotel. However, they couldn't get an umbrella for him, so each of them volunteered to share with him instead. Still, in the end, they still argued about it. Back at the hotel, the three sisters share the bath together. Kazuki and Miwa chat lightly about the festival. Nico, however, remains unusually quiet, her mind replaying what happened earlier. All three had wanted to share an umbrella with Yu, which led to a game of rock, paper, scissors. Nico won, and though it was only a short walk, the experience felt strangely overwhelming. Her heart pounded uncontrollably with every step, and even now, she can't understand why. Nico wonders if it's just because of wearing a kimono, but then she starts moving awkwardly, lost in thought. Her strange movements catch Kazuki and Miwa's attention, shocking them before they both burst into laughter, teasing her about wanting to be a real woman. When they finish bathing, the sisters are startled to find Yu stepping out of the lobby, drenched from dirt and rain. Curious, they ask where he's going, only to learn he forgot to book a room and the entire hotel is now fully occupied. He plans to look for another place to stay, even if he has to sleep in a net cafe. The three freeze in shock, but Kazuki suddenly speaks. She requests an extra set of bedding, and soon Yu is spreading a futon on their floor to sleep in the same room. This, of course, completely undermines his original plan of giving the sisters private time to bond. Still, leaving him out in the bad weather is unthinkable. Though they try to act casual, their concern is obvious. After all, they've shared a home before. Offering him shelter now feels like simple decency. Yu tells them to carry on as if he isn't there and goes to find a robe before taking a bath, but Kazuki accidentally steps into his path. He quickly apologizes and Kazuki feels her cheeks warm, though she tries to hide it. Unfortunately, there are no spare robes in sight. Miwa, however, insists there should be extras in the cupboards and begins searching. Yu joins her, and when she turns unexpectedly, their faces end up just inches apart, leaving Miwa flustered. Nico also starts rummaging through another cabinet. Yu notices a robe on the top shelf, which is out of her reach. Without thinking, he steps in close to grab it for her, unintentionally pinning Miko against the cabinet door. With this, her face turns red as Yu finally retrieves the robe. With that, he excuses himself and heads for the bath, only then realizing the room feels far too cramped for 4 people. From inside the bathroom, Yu keeps apologizing for intruding on their sisterly time. Meanwhile, the three stand frozen outside the door, silently wondering how they're supposed to relax with him around. That night, the three sisters struggle to fall asleep, each feeling oddly restless with Yu sharing the room. Still, they pretend it's just the lingering thrill of their events. Meanwhile, Yu lies quietly on his bedding, smiling to himself as memories from earlier replay in his mind. Despite the chaos, he managed to capture a perfect photo of the sisters with the golden shrine. Though their first poses were stiff, the final shot showed 3 genuine smiles, a true recreation of their childhood picture. Reaching into his bag, Yu plans to take out the old photo for comparison, only to realize it's missing. A wave of panic hits, but then his eyes catch a small note placed beside his bed. The message reads, "I took back the photo." He never expected anyone to claim it, but the thought brings him relief. At least the photo has returned to the person it truly belongs to. After a few moments, Yu drifts into a deep sleep, leaving the 3 sisters complaining. They rise, exchanging frustrated looks, realizing none of them can fall asleep. Each makes an excuse, blaming the festival excitement or their event the next morning before lying back down again. But drowsiness doesn't come easily. Instead, Kazuki suddenly mentions Miko's flowery kimono, sparking a conversation. Before they know it, they're reminiscing about their childhood, how their tastes were once so different. Except for Miwa, who hadn't changed a bit, she still has the same thrill whenever she gets to pick a kimono. Still, they feel grateful for the chance to experience the festival again after so many years. Their thoughts drift back to old memories, and soon, they tease Miwa for bragging about winning games back then, when in truth, it was Kazuki secretly helping her all along. That moment makes them realize something. They hardly talk like this anymore. Life has kept them busy, and even though they share the same house, they've been living in separate worlds. Deep down, they know this is exactly what you hoped for, and strangely enough, his plan worked. Miwa admits it feels weird, yet her heart warms. She pulls out the photo Yu thought he lost, holding it next to the picture on her phone. Both captured the golden shrine, one from 10 years ago, the other one from tonight. Staring at the images she recalls, used determination to recreate that memory despite the rain and impossible odds. The next day, news spreads of Kazuki's flawless stage performance while Miwa and Miko ace their respective competitions. You can't help but feel impressed that despite spending the previous night goofing off the festival, the three still managed to shine. To him, they are really true prodigies. Back when the three were searching for Yu at the festival, they argued over how to find him without having his phone number. Miwa suggested posting a missing person notice on social media for Kazuki's followers to see. However, when they tried to describe him, their descriptions were too vague. Wanting to highlight his most unique trait, Kazuki mentioned his smile, even boasting that she had seen it up close. Not wanting to lose, Miwa bragged about knowing everything about him too, especially his cooking skills. Finally, Nico revealed how Yu cares for her by buying protein and sports tape. Realizing how personal the descriptions sounded, all three turned bright red. In the end, they abandoned the idea and decided to search for him themselves.